You have a live blade of this?
I think so.
What? Look at that, there is a live edge Zenith blade. Welcome to Blade HQ, everybody. Today on Collector's Corner, I have Jacob Knudsen, the CMO of Blade HQ and the puppet master of the balisong community. And this is a lot of knives, Jacob.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it today.
Yeah! So Jacob, tell us what you do here at Blade HQ.
I am the Chief Marketing Officer. I've been at Blade HQ for coming up on 18 years now. Oversee specifically marketing and products.
Yeah, so when I do a bad job of video, he hears about it and then I get in trouble.
Good heavens, George is in some kind of trouble.
Correct.
Yep. But you also have the biggest balisong collection I have ever seen. And that includes a lot of the crazy bally flippers who bring suitcases full of them to Blade show. So how'd you get into balisongs?
I think being in the knife industry for as long as I have been, it's just kind of been a natural progression. For some reason, I've always had an affinity towards balisongs. If I'm being honest, I'm not a flipper. Don't ask me to flip.
What the flip is this?
But I like the allure, I like the aesthetic, I like the utility of a balisong knife, so.
Okay, well, let's jump right in. What's the first knife we're gonna talk about?
I kind of want to do this in somewhat of a timeline based on my tenure here at Blade HQ. And with a lot of people, I think you start with Benchmade. Benchmade is what I would call the godfather of the modern balisong. Obviously, balisongs have existed for a long time, but Benchmade kind of brought them more into the mainstream, brought them into, better manufacturing capabilities, and so, I consider them kind of the modern godfather of the balisong.
And they were among the first to be made in America, yeah?
Correct, yeah. Less to Assis, in fact, it was originally called Balisong USA, later changed their name to Benchmade. But this particular one is kind of a little bit of a rare one. This is the Benchmade 30, finished in this kind of rainbow finish.
Yeah, so when I see this rainbow finish, I kind of think of gas station knives a little bit, but I feel like Benchmade was doing this before it was
Before gas stations, yes. No, and it's interesting because people will often look at this and think it's a knockoff or a fake Benchmade, but it is in fact a real Benchmade and kind of the precursor to the Benchmade 42. And I brought 3 different Benchmade 42s here that kind of show...
Just to flex on all the plebs.
more to show like how even the Benchmade 42 has progressed. Mm-hmm. This is what is called the T-latch. This is pre-spring latch, which it's kind of defined the Benchmade 42 in my opinion. But you can usually tell earlier models by the T-latch. Mm-hmm. Here's another T-latch, but a bit more of a rare one with coated titanium handles. So all these have titanium handles.
Man, so is this like a powder coat they do? Or?
It looks like a powder coat, yeah.
Man. Dang.
And then what is probably considered the classic balisong is the Benchmade 42 spring latch.
So this one has a little circle that engages here rather than the T-shaped latch of the other guy. Here, I'll latch it so we can juxtapose. So what is it about the 42 that made it so iconic? Because I've seen people we put it out of short, we borrowed one of your 42s for it, and somebody's like, where'd you get that 42? I want it, I want to buy it, I'll pay you. How much money will it take to get that 42 to be mine? So why is it so sought after?
I think at the time there wasn't anything that was catered towards the flipper. The 42 was the first knife that contained the elements that flippers are looking for as far as like weight distribution and just the overall dynamics. Being titanium also I think had a draw there. It hit the right weight dynamics as well. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting, I think when I first started Blade HQ, we used to sell the 42 on our site for around $150.
Those were the days.
You'll be lucky to find one for, I don't know, I haven't kept up on the market, but probably 700.
It's a lot of money. But it's definitely a piece of knife history.
All right, next up, another Benchmade. This is the Benchmade 32. This knife is not geared towards the flippers, but it has a special place in my heart because I love a balisong as a EDC utility blade. The mechanics of a balisong knife basically makes it into a fixed blade. You know, you have two handles. When held, your hand acts as the locking mechanism, and there really is no fail point when it comes down to it. And I know balisongs aren't widely accepted as an EDC, but
that's a crying shame, it sounds like.
it is a crying shame. And hear me out, if anyone's out there, make an EDC balisong for the rest of the knife community, not geared necessarily towards the flippers. This particular one has titanium, Flytanium scales. And I really like this one because it takes it to a different level, adds a bit more weight to it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
You're fired.
I told you I wasn't gonna flip, I'm sorry.
And yeah, just kind of a different aesthetic.
Yeah, I like how this one gives it quite a bit more handle bias, because that's what I like in an EDC knife anyway. And then we have a nice pocket clip for carrying. Yeah, I'd carry that if it was still in production and not a priceless limited edition now.
Yeah. So there was a time when the 42 was discontinued and there was no longer a go-to choice for the hardcore flippers. Benchmade then came out with the 51. This is a Blade HQ exclusive that we worked up. We kind of wanted to mimic the whole pattern found on the 42. So we asked Benchmade to kind of recreate that pattern. But ultimately, this knife wasn't exactly what the flippers were looking for. If you compare it to the weight of a 42, it's quite a bit lighter.
Yeah. Is that because, like, these are just G10 over
Titanium liners.
So it's gonna be pretty light. You don't get the weight you'd get from steel or something. But compare that to Mr. 42 here, and yeah, that just wants to move faster.
Yeah. And I think this introduced, at least to the balisong industry, the idea of knife modding, which I think across the whole industry has become very popular. And so these two Flytanium models basically replaced the G10 with titanium to give it that extra weight, and it was aimed to be closer to the 42. Now it's a little bit of a shorter knife, so it didn't quite get there. But at the time, you have to remember that all the balisongs you see today that are geared towards flippers, they didn't really exist at this stage.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the things that I remember hearing legend of you, because I remember the first time I talked to you, I'd been here for like 6 months. Even though I had to walk by your office to get to my desk, I was told, yeah, that's Jacob. He was like the first employee here or something, and he's a legend. I'm like, don't talk to the legend. Do not talk to the legend. But I think for you guys watching out there, it cannot be understated how much of a leap forward in the balisong world was led by you and your passion for this product.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people out there. I think I just nudged people in the right direction. You know, we'll talk about some of these knives here in a second. You know, the companies themselves, you know, put in the effort to try to bring a knife that the flippers wanted.
Also, this blade looks a little bit familiar. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
Consider yourselves teased.
You shouldn't tease George like that.
Okay, so that's a lot of Benchmade balisongs.
That is Benchmade. We're going to move on to Microtech. You know, Microtech is mainly known for their OTFs. Make the best OTF in the game. Have been doing OTFs longer than anyone else. But I don't think we should discount their contribution to the balisong game. And I've got two knives here that have dates on them. So, I mean, these predate actually some of those Benchmades. 2001 Tachyon 1.
2001. Dang. And that's a 14 CRMO. I've never heard of that blade steel.
So this size probably closely resembles the 32. So again, not really geared towards the flippers, but a really cool utility EDC knife.
Yeah, well, when I think of Microtech, I kind of think of them as the pioneers of the tactical knife as we now know it now. And I think maybe this was like flip it out, flip it hard, self-defense, tactical balisong.
For sure.
With a T-latch.
And titanium handles, obviously, and then 2005, at least this one's dated 2005. This is the Dragonfly with aluminum handles. Same overall dimensions, though.
Man, so 2001 and 2005 predate your time at Blade HQ.
They do, yeah.
So how'd you get them?
I do not remember.
It sounds like it was quite the hunt to gather this collection.
You know, it used to be easier. I think it gets harder and harder, especially with some of these older pieces as they become more collectible. You know, especially in the condition where they haven't been flipped.
Yeah, those flippers sure bang up their knives, don't they?
They do. Which leads us into kind of my role at Blade HQ. At the time, I believe I was the product manager, so one of my responsibilities was bringing cool knives to you guys. And seeing kind of the demand for balisongs, but with the 42 being discontinued, and you know maybe the 51 not quite hitting all the specs the flippers were looking for, I started reaching out to various companies, pleading that they make a balisong and you know within some certain specifications. So I think one of the first people I reached out to was Tony Marfione. Called up Tony and was like, Tony, let's take the Tachyon 1, let's do a Tachyon 2, here's the specs. And he said yes, which brings us to
challenge accepted.
The Tachyon 2. Now mind you, I'm not a flipper, and I'll talk about flippers designed by flippers here later. But I think given my limited flipping experience and trying to convey what the industry was looking for, Microtech did an excellent job, you know, coming up with the Tachyon 2, which is another one of those knives that has become quite sought after and very difficult to find on the secondary market. So this was a Blade HQ exclusive. I think we did a couple different blade shapes. You know, at the time, bushings versus washers wasn't really a debate. There wasn't a lot of bushing-based balisongs. So this one does run on washers, and for a washer-based balisong,
it's pretty smooth.
People really liked it. And we're kind of jumping ahead in the timeline here, but this is just kind of a cool piece. This is a true prototype. It doesn't actually quite fully function because we were just trying to figure out the concept, but this is the Tachyon 3. And the difference between this is aluminum handles, which now have become widely accepted. But at the time, I think Microtech was pushing the boundaries here, and people, the flippers, did not accept aluminum as an acceptable handle material.
It's steel and tie, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Man, but that's super cool blade. We got to go and visit Tony Marfione in North Carolina earlier this year, and I got to sort of learn his grind philosophies and hear from everything, and I would pick that up. I'm like, yeah, that's a Tony grind.
So this is just a one-off, double-edged sharpened swedge, you know, and a true prototype, which is kind of fun to have in the collection.
Yeah, so that's the only one.
That I know of. I mean, I'm sure they made other prototypes, but you know, they had kind of sent us this one so we could give our feedback and any adjustments that were necessary.
Oh, that also has Microtech hardware on it.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't. Do these other ones have stuff like that? That's just Torx, yeah?
Yeah, their proprietary hardware didn't always exist, you know, and it's kind of been an evolution, and you know, we've kind of seen it come and go too, where they don't use it and then they use it again.
Yeah, I mean, I'm carrying a Microtech today, my MSI, and it's just Torx.
Yep.
Brand new for this year, so.
Yep. All right, so next up in kind of my balisong whisperer timeline.
I am the balisong whisperer.
I went to Dave, a good friend over at Protech, and said, hey Dave, hear me out. I know you do automatics. but I think you should do a balisong. And I completely expected him to say, pound sand.
No way, Jose. Like,
but to my surprise, he said yes. And I think if I took him a project like that now, there would be no way, especially given how many pieces we ran. So this is the Flyfather. And again, on this particular knife, I didn't, if I remember the timeline and the story, I don't think I really influenced much on this other than, hey Dave, you should make a balisong. So this is very, very like Protech when it comes down to it. Obviously the blade shape harkens to, the godson, the godfather. This was very different from what Protech was doing normally. At the time, a lot of it was aluminum handles, automatic knives, and this is like all titanium. In the closed position, Dave was telling me how much time and money he spent just on the clip, because he wanted the tip to extend as far as possible within the handles, but in order to do that, the clip, the latch, I should say, the latch is actually rounded and kind of curves around the tip of the blade.
oh yeah, look at that. So there's the Protech T-latch, and let's grab a Benchmade. Not that Benchmade. Don't want to scratch anything. But like, we have a straight T-latch, but then this guy's got a pretty big curve, and what you're saying is that allowed the Flyfather to just have more blade length.
Yeah, so you can see he brought the tip up as far as possible, and if the latch was flat, it would contact the tip of the blade.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to make some B-roll of that. That's a pretty tight squeeze in there, but I'm impressed.
And if I remember correctly, Dave only made a few hundred of these. So again, fairly difficult to find on the secondary market. Wasn't catered towards the flippers, but towards balisong collectors and I think Protech collectors.
Yeah, I gotta say, I like this jimping, especially if it's gonna be an everyday carry sort of balisong.
Yeah.
That really locks you in. Because I know that one thing, especially with heavy flipping balisongs, is if you're going to try and stab with one, you can sometimes slide up and onto the blade. But this super prevents that. Very nicely done, Protech.
And kind of an evolution of that story, which combines, at least for me, like multiple pathways, is the brand new Flyfather 2. So this was a collaboration with another good friend in the industry, Lucas Cow of Squid Industries. And my understanding is, and I might have it reversed, but Dave did either the handles and Lucas did the blade, or vice versa. I might have that mixed up. But basically, at Blade West, Dave had not seen the final product. Lucas was in charge of final assembly. And so, given our history with the original Flyfather, Dave took delivery of these and came over and threw me one and said, you get to open the first production Flyfather. Like at this point, Dave had not seen the production Flyfather. So allowed me to open it and gifted me this one.
Man, I'd be honored. Like this is, you got Squid Industries and Protech, neither of whom is slouch. They are some of the most legendary manufacturers in this industry. And this is maybe the most ambitious crossover event of all time.
And again, I think this is very outside what Lucas at Squid would do, and very outside of what Dave is traditionally known for. But I think there's just really cool storytelling, and this collaboration coming together is really neat.
A real throwback, a new twist on an old classic. And I love that we have a 4-position pocket clip, because I feel like the balisong community has sort of drifted away from clips and everyday carry in more favor of sheer flipping performance.
Yeah, clips, pocket clips, latches, you don't find that a lot on, modern balisongs.
Yeah, but who needs a latch when you have a seam in your pocket? Just throw that in and tuck it against your leg and you're good, right?
All right, so next up is kind of another momentous shift, in my opinion, within the balisong industry and community. So Ed and Lawrence of BRS fame, also known as Lucifer and Knifezoid, on the Jersey Devil forum, if anyone remembers that forum.
The Jersey I've never heard of this forum.
It used to be kind of the go-to forum for balisongs in general, but you know, the USN, if you're familiar with that group, that
Usual Suspects Network.
That was kind of their
rest in peace.
That was their forum, and this is what I call like a flipper first balisong. So Ed and Lawrence were heavy into flipping, great flippers, very integrated in the community, and saw a need, kind of like I had seen, of more balisongs. And what they had that I didn't was personal knowledge and skill. And so they were able to take that and basically create a very successful company from that. Their first release was called the Alpha Beast. And it's a really great story. So they originally were just trying to test the market. I mean, these are two kids that met on a forum and were friends and like decided to start this company together. So they had Matt Cook, who's a custom knife maker, make 12 basically prototypes of the Alpha Beast that they call the Dirty Dozen.
The Dirty Dozen. Is this one of them?
No, this is not. This is not one of them. This is a production one, but you know, and it doesn't seem like a lot, you know, selling 12 knives, but that was a big deal. And they're like, okay, if we can sell 12 knives, can we sell 50 knives? Can we sell 100 knives? Can we sell 1,000 knives? And this, I think, was the first knife that was really geared towards the modern balisong flipper. You can see, let's compare it to like a 42.
Okay, so here's our spring lash 42.
So lengthwise, it's a bigger knife. Not a ton bigger. Weight-wise,
Has quite a bit more heft.
has a bit more heft. And again, you know, this was based on their personal experience and kind of their preferences, which catered towards, you know, the balisong community. You know, and they built a very successful company. You know, again, close friends of mine. When I saw what they were doing, you know, I reached out pretty early and was like, hey, how does Blade HQ get involved? How can we carry your product? And you know, they were kind enough to onboard us and you know, allow us to sell their knives.
And now BRS is a brand we sell quite a bit of. In fact, I believe you can go and get a replicant right now at bladehq.com.
Yeah, you know, very well known for the replicant, the tie bones, and they're continuing to innovate within the space.
Yeah, and one thing I really appreciate about the balisong industry is how, even though there are businesses that maybe compete with each other, the people behind them are friends. And every year at the West Coast Flipping Championship, I see it's run by Lucas and Squid Industries, but Lawrence from BRS is right there as a judge.
They kind of stick close together because it is different than the rest of the knife industry, and it is a different product. I think a lot of these guys are also into traditional, you know, folders and, you know, regular pocket knives, but balisongs are their true love.
Their go-to.
All right, next up, I couldn't have this conversation without including Jerry Hom of Hom Designs. This is the Spectre, and I believe this is a one-off prototype, has a hand-ground blade, which is, you know, why it's important and in my collection. I can't remember why he gave this to me. I think maybe he was looking for some feedback on something. But Jerry kind of falls in that same vein as BRS in trying to create more knives that are flipper first, flipper forward.
And one thing I really appreciate about Hom Designs, Justin Lyons, one of our buyers, carries one pretty frequently, is he makes blades that want to cut. They have a hollow grind, they have this crazy needle-like tip. Don't drop it, you'll break that tip real easy, but it wants to cut as well. Like, it's a nice mix between the flipping and the everyday carry cutting worlds.
And that's the thing, these all function in the traditional knife sense, right? They aren't putting a less of an edge on it because, you know, they're gonna be flipping it. Like, these things cut.
Yeah, however, I have seen in the sidewalk outside the building at Blade Show, some of the Bally boys out there scraping sharp edges off of their new knives so they don't cut their fingers off.
Fair enough. All right, next up, we've got Flytanium. Something I like about this particular one, again, designed by a close friend, Mr. Eldon Talley.
What a legend. You should meet him someday. He's a party.
He lives local. He's about 5 minutes away from my house. We've always enjoyed just him as a person, but also his design. So Flytanium took this design and made a production version. So this is the Balisong Z, milled aluminum handles. And something really cool that they came up with is what they call the bally boot. So as you notice, a lot of the knives we're showing, especially the modern knives, don't have latches, yet I think there's still a need for some sort of safety component. So Flytanium developed the bally boot that is used to secure the knife in the closed position and also in the open position, I suppose. But kind of an innovative little approach to address those that don't want a latch on their knife, but still want a way to keep it closed.
Yeah, so Eldon's one of my friends, so I went and bought one of my own. And mine's a little bit banged up, and I engraved Bandit Healer on it. But the boot, it holds up pretty well. I've had this for coming up on 2 years now, and it does great. I gotta tell you, what I love about this is the knurling on the handle.
It's really nice.
Super good. Eldon, you dog. Keep it up, buddy.
This one is a somewhat polarizing knife in the balisong community. This is the Tater Song.
I remember when this came out, and I was like, oh boy.
Based on the golden alchemy of fried starchy potatoes.
Surprised we went with crinkle cut and not like curly fries on this one.
Yeah, I think this one's fun just as an interesting piece in the collection. Again, it flips in my opinion fairly well, but definitely different than what else you'll see in the knife community.
Yeah, but it is quite a statement of a knife. I remember when Flytanium launched it, they had this whole campaign where they built like a paper bag, and they stuffed it like it was fast food.
The packaging,
it was so much fun.
Came with little ketchup packets.
Because what makes your knife better than ketchup?
Next up from Flytanium is the UFO, the Unidentified Flipping Object. The point with this one was to create a product that didn't feel like a knife that was also safe. So trainers are a thing in the knife industry, but most trainers, like this, have a general knife resemblance. Again, there's no sharp edge on this, so there's no, potential of cutting yourself, but it still looks like a knife. So what they wanted to do was create basically a toy-like flipping device that could be, brought on an airplane through TSA. You could bring it to school, and kind of avoid, some of the faux pas of balisongs. Also, what's really interesting about this industry is because of how young it is, you have to get the go-ahead from your parents in many of these instances. And so this was designed to, make the parents feel a little bit better about their kids flipping knives and start them on this, move them into a regular trainer, and then into live blades.
One thing I appreciate here is that they didn't make it like a bottle opener or anything. It very easily could become one, and if you took this to any other EDC companies, they would absolutely throw a bottle opener in there. But this is an object that you can flip, and it isn't really anything else. And for that reason, I sent one to my nephew for Christmas last year. He's in, I think, 8th grade, 9th grade.
Yeah.
And he still hasn't gotten it taken away in school. Nobody's bothered by the fact that he has it.
Well, and then another reason for the hole was maybe to introduce a new way to do tricks. The balisong community is very innovative in the tricks they do, and it's been fun to see what they've done, with this as an option for additional tricks.
You chaplain? Oh, you could totally chaplain with this thing. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And aren't these like $20 or something?
20-something bucks, yeah.
Not bad at all. Very nice.
And then last from Flytanium is an unreleased model. This is the Zenith Trainer 2.0. So this one, they have another one called, just the regular Zenith. They took feedback from the community and applied that to the design, and this is the 2.0 based on the feedback from the community. This is probably one of the best bang for your bucks you're gonna get for a trainer.
Yeah, because you're getting channel aluminum handles, bushing pivots, Zen pins, and a nice bite indicator and everything for like 60, 70 bucks.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
It's not bad at all. And one thing I want to talk about a little bit with Flytanium is that Zenith, because I remember before I even started at Blade HQ, and before I really knew what Flytanium was about, I'd seen the Zenith trainer on the 50, 51, is that what it is, the Morpho? But like...
Do you want me to get the, I think I actually have a live blade.
You have a live blade of this?
I think so.
What? Oh my goodness. I didn't even know that was a thing. My goodness, I'll be darned. Look at that, there is a live edge Zenith blade. Look at that. So the question is, are we gonna get a live edge Zenith like this?
Squid has talked to Flytanium about the possibility of doing a collab, and it would feature the Zenith blade, but a double edge instead of a false edge.
That's scary.
So if you think normal balisongs are dangerous, this one will get you.
Dang, but I love how the Zenith is sort of the icon of Flytanium. Because I imagine with that collaboration, it'll probably be like the Flyfather. There'll be the Squid logo and the dead fly on the other. Man, these are fun.
Yeah. And then last but not least, at least for my collection,
The one we've been beating around the bush for a little while now.
yeah, I kind of rounded out with Squid Industries and Lucas Cow, which we've talked about a little bit with the Flyfather 2 collaboration. So Lucas Cow from Squid Industries was another flipper first designer who also happened to grow up in a machine shop. So he decided that he was, going to start his own brand, and here we have the Crake Raken. Now I give Lucas credit for the wide adoption of aluminum as a handle choice in the balisong community. Again, Microtech did it with their Tachyon 3, and I don't know the timelines. Maybe that came out first. But really, a lot of the modern balisongs now do aluminum channeled handles, and I give Lucas credit for making that an accepted handle.
I really like it. For no other reason, the sound. Oh, it sounds so good.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. I think in the balisong community, there's been such a focus on feedback from the buyers that it goes from flipping dynamics to weight to sound, right? And sound is a big thing within the balisong community that has that ASMR aspect.
Oh yes, which I think really lends, because I was talking to a guy at Blade Show and he was saying, I love balisongs because I need to fidget. Like he has apparently crippling ADHD. And he just fidget with this all day long, and he says, it's something to move my hands, I feel tactile clicks, and I hear them, and I'm like, yes. When I do this, my mind is calm. And apparently he'll like turn his microphone off and flip while he's in school and stuff. But I just thought, what a weird practical use for a balisong.
Because it's not about needing something to, it's not about needing a knife to cut something for them, right? There's much more to it. And it kind of brings home the point that the balisong community has evolved over time just by showing these knives and kind of the history within the last, my 17 years plus of selling knives. I remember there was a Blade Show Atlanta one year where we were trying to film some balisong content. And Blade Show was so mad that they actually kicked us out and would not allow us to film any balisong content. So it went from Blade kicking us out of a show to fast forward to today, where Blade is actually hosting 2 balisong flipping competitions. The Bally Comp in Atlanta, hosted by Blade HQ and Blade Show, and the West Coast Flipping Competition at Blade West, hosted by Squid Industry and Blade Shows. So it's really interesting to see how the industry has almost come full circle and has continued to embrace balisongs, because really this is one of the next generations of knife enthusiasts, knife collectors, balisong enthusiasts.
Yeah, so a big part of my job is search engine analytics, optimizing content, and our #1 search term is butterfly knife. People want this sort of thing, and for all you knife nerds out there who aren't into balisongs, I suggest you learn to love them because you're going to be seeing a lot of them very soon. And it's not like we haven't seen a lot of them already. There's a lot of knife history here. And I think the fact that the butterfly knife world has grown so much in the time you've been here but they've been so behind the scenes. Just it tells me there's a flood that's about to fall.
Yeah, it's really been interesting to see, and there's a lot of new makers and companies that we haven't really talked about today that are doing kind of more boutique balisongs, and I think they're all contributing to this as well.
But the future has 2 handles and a blade that flips, and I'm all for it. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for coming, and for all you guys watching out there, this might be half of the knives he has. Maybe. He has so many balisongs, so I'm just curious, like, are you still collecting balisongs?
Not like I was. You know, I'll occasionally pick up some pieces that have some sentimental value. You know, the Flyfather 2 is an example of that.
Yeah, and I don't even want to know what your folder collection must look like.
We'll do that in a different video.
All right, well, Jacob, thank you so much for your time. We'll get this video out nice and soon, and hopefully you'll like everything so we don't all get in trouble. And thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.